Disclaimer: nudity, gore, disturbing imagery. In designing horrific creatures, I find it's best to study horrific visuals. In this video, I searched for some images of dead people, and some might find those images disturbing. I blurred out the search results, but I've left the images I pulled onto my reference board unblurred for educational purposes. Okay. Reference hunting. So let's begin this fairly simply. I've already gathered up references from existing vampire media. This is kind of like a due diligence pass. I didn't record this part of the finding because it's kind of boring, but I am going to organize the images on here. Basically, any kind of cool vampire that I like from existing media, I pulled into this board. And now I'm just going to organize the images so they're readable and kind of clear for me to kind of look across as I begin my drawing in the next stage. I guess I'm trying to make a monstrous vampire. Imagine in a movie there's like a human and then they reveal they're a vampire and they turn into this like monstrous kind of face, kind of like that top image from Lost Boys. I kind of put those in there as like a before and after of like what they look like, right? I don't want to go too monstrous with it. Like, I don't want it to be a bat creature. I want it to be very much like a man who's like kind of mutated. And I also want the influences to come from like the idea of like death and like a corpse-like signifiers. But here I'm just organizing all the frames. In Miro, you can crop the frames in real time once you upload them, so it's very convenient. So I'm just cropping out anything that's not important, and just organizing them in this larger frame. This white square it's on is called a frame, and I've labeled it Vampire Ref. I use Miro as a website at my day job at the game studio. And ever since I started using it, I've really kind of fallen in love with it. So it's very much a staple of my reference gathering research procedure now. So I recommend trying it out if you haven't tried it before. It's basically a whiteboard, and you can organize all your images and text. You can make flowcharts. You can add arrows and stickers. It's an easy way to communicate with people that are, not with you physically. Especially because I work in London with a company in LA. It's like easy to organize our thoughts all together in one place. We used this back when I was in LA still too. It's just like a industry standard at this point. If companies don't use Miro, they'll use like Canva. I've never used Canva before, but I've heard people love or hate it. And Miro to me is really nice. And you can see above those little sticky notes. That's actually my plan for this video. So all these are my, I blocked out all the steps to making this video that I need to do. And then I have a separate project up there from a friend of mine. So this is kind of my all-purpose board for personal projects. So this first column I'm making, it's all existing vampire media and stuff I think that's cool, stuff that I like, from movies I've seen or heard of, and I've kind of organized it. I mean, some people organize these images with like the largest images being the most influential, the smallest images being the least influential. I haven't done that personally, but I know people that do that. When you'll basically like, your most inspirational image will be the largest image on the board, and then like your least influential image will be like the smallest one. Now switching over to Pinterest. These are my curated boards that I already have for the past few years, and I'm just going to go to my shocking and ghastly board, and I blurred out I blurred out the board just for the sake of certain viewers might not find some of these images too enjoyable to look at. In terms of hunting reference, I kind of like to cast a wide net, and I'm not afraid to look up, horrific images if I need to. You'll see the images I pull in a moment here. But for the sake of if some people don't want to see this kind of stuff, you can just, avert your eyes later. But there's certain things I just wanted to kind of pull in. So there's like a burn victim. There's like some people with deformed teeth. Anything that can kind of work with a vampire idea. And then later on, I'll be pulling in some images of dead people for skin texture reference and for some inspiration for mainly colorization, which will come at a later step in the video. But I want to go ahead and pull all my references now for the full spectrum of what I'm going to be working on. Okay, so now we're back out, and I'm going to I believe it's my alternative model section. Or maybe it's creature section. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm looking for the alternative model section. Real skull. Okay, yeah, pulling in just a generic skull just so I can kind of reference some of the basics as I'm drawing. I have an actual cast of a skull on my desk, but it's easier to kind of just throw in this image under the board and keep the board open while I work. So there's some go-tos I always throw into the board, like a skull, general pose, general muscle anatomy. That kind of stuff always goes on my board just to remind myself like what's going on with the human body, especially when I'm drawing the full figure. For this first part of the video, we're only going to be sketching the head, and then we're going to expand and go into the body in the later parts of the video. So here we go. Here's all my images. Like I said, it's a man with a kind of a deformation on his mouth. There's like some kind of burn victim from like the World War One. There's another man who's got some kind of skin condition that looks kind of unsettling. And then I think finally there's like a woman who has like a flesh-eating disease on her mouth. And it's just ideas I could pull from for like existing maladies, just existing unsettling visuals. Okay. Now we're going to go into some animal reference. Vampire bat. I'm kind of throwing in the basics here. So vampire bat, I'm going to throw one on. I've seen them a lot. I've drawn them a lot. At this point, I just want to make sure to have a reminder. So I found a really good straight-on head image. We can see the nose really clearly. You can see the lips. They've got this interesting lower lip that kind of like peels open. It kind of splits into two. That's something that they all have. Vampire bats, at least, that I've always noticed. I've pulled this image before in the past. This one that I'm grabbing. It's just a good, almost a 3/4 profile view. And then, of course, getting some teeth. Images of the teeth. I'm just snapping the photos with the screen capture tool on the Mac. Now I'm going into Leech references. I'm trying to find any kind of blood-sucking creature to kind of pull inspiration from, and specifically the mouth of the leech or the lamprey, just a similar organism. So I'm going to take those teeth. I might find something there that's interesting. I know I end up sticking with more of a bat-like creature because part of my inspiration for this image is to kind of give it like a 80s movie feel. Like it's the kind of makeup you might see in the classic vampire film from like 1988 or something. So I end up kind of sticking with the bat as like my main source of inspiration, but I wanted to pull in some of these other sources just to experiment a little bit. But the one thing I was trying to stay away from was making this creature look. I wanted to make sure that it looks like a vampire, and I didn't want it to look too alien. And like this mosquito reference I'm pulling, when I started pulling in a lot of the mosquito references into my drawings, I realized like it wasn't reading as vampire anymore. It was reading more as like some kind of bug alien. So I think there's more experimentation to be had if I were to go that route. Like if the prompt was we have to base it off a mosquito, I would try and incorporate some different visual language. Pulling the fly, because of the mosquito reference, I was thinking about it and I was like, well, we already have a movie example of a guy who turns into a bug, so let's pull those references. And I know in the fly they're kind of calling back to like disease as an inspiration. So like lots of his transformation looks like he's kind of growing like these cancerous tumors, which may or may not work for you and your designs. They kind of work for me. I don't really have a direct need to reference like cancer as a motif in the design. I think if there's a motif I'm going to try and keep in mind would be like an addict's face, like a meth addict or some kind of like heroin addict. Like I kind of view the vampirism as like a person who's addicted to the blood, and so they're kind of driven to just go for the blood, like the way a drug addict is. So I kind of find the parallels with that kind of connection a little more interesting for how I want to design this guy. And I say guy, I'm recording this video after the drawing session has happened, so I know I end up going with a male vampire. That's kind of why I'm referencing that. But I end up drawing some female vampires too. Okay, so you organize the frames, and the way it works is when you move the frame, all the images inside the frame become attached. So like you don't have to move all these individual images. Again, you can just worry about moving the main frame, and then all of the interior text and images move along with it. So that's just one of the reasons you use the frames as opposed to like a square of color, because you can put in squares of color in Miro, but the framing tool is much better for this purpose. You try and organize your references clearly, so I'm keeping it into 3 or 4 columns, easily readable, labeled clearly. A lot of that comes from my work experience. We have to deliver references as part of our job. At least in my company, our department reviews references all together, so we're all on the same page before we start, designing. And making sure your reference board is easily readable without you being there to, talk about it is very important. And it's something I always mess up on too. So it's something that I'm constantly trying to remind myself to like organize it better, label it better, add enough notes here and there. I'm looking up pictures of dead people right now. That's why I blurred the screen. I'm just snapping some pictures of decomposing corpses, anything that gives me some interesting ideas for this vampire. I just blurred out there's actually not that many pictures of dead people on the screen. It was easier for me to blur out the whole thing. But you'll see what I pull in a moment here. But if you don't want to see this kind of stuff, I'm not going to force you to. I know that plenty of special effects makeup artists that will go to morgues and get photos and research images. And then I know special effects makeup artists that can't stand, seeing actual dead people. So it just depends on the kind of artist you are and like, how you can stomach looking at certain things, if you're just, used to it or not. For me, like I said, I'm trying to see as much as I can to influence like a horrific creature. I want to see horrific images. So that's kind of the thought process behind it. But we're just searching for, I'm looking for like coloration of the skin. I'm looking for the way the blood pools up in the eyes. I think that's interesting. I think that's really useful for how we can make this vampire look unique. I'm looking for, you know, injuries, scabs, anything that kind of looks similar to like maybe what a vampire might look like. You know, little cuts and scratches, veining, any kind of interesting veining. Right here, that's the images of the eye I talked about. There's a process that happens to the human eye where, like, when part of it remains open after you die, some of the blood will raise to the surface of the eye. So you get this kind of like line across the eye of like a dark, dried blood. And it's very interesting. I've never seen it used in any kind of film, but I think it's it really happens to the body, and I think it's interesting. Here I'm getting some discolored body skin tones. I'm just looking for like patterns, color mixtures, color combinations, skin textures. And I'm just pulling. This is actually like a research website that I found, and it was like, it has photos of cadavers for research purposes. So you got to kind of think, when hunting for references, you try to get off of Google search as fast as you can. You can start in Google, and then you need to try and like dig deeper than just Google. And if you go onto Pinterest, you got to dig a little deeper than just Pinterest. You got to like go to the website, find the source, and see what you can muster up from within there. Here are the uncensored images that I pulled, and we'll have a close-up of the screen later so you can see everything. I guess one tip I know from work that was really helpful, if you're researching like environments, going onto Google Maps and searching with the world view tool, the street view, where you can like go and take a look at the buildings on the street. It allows you to go find a building on the street that's similar to what you're looking for, and then what you can do is you can click on the Google review, and the Google review will normally have somebody who posted images from their vacation. So you'll get like interior photos of a location, and you'll be able to like research a specific area. Like, let's say you're doing like a New York bodega. You can go to New York, put yourself in the corner street, look around, find a bodega, find the review for it, and then find people that took pictures inside that bodega. And then you can like have this like array of images from someone that was on the ground that was able to travel there. Okay. Now, interesting faces. I'm trying to find, I'm basically casting my vampire. Any face that could be a really interesting vampire. So like this guy right here with a scar on his face. This guy right here with a big smile. I think this guy here, he's got some kind of like scar on his eye. It looks interesting. I'm pulling in this guy. He's got like he could be like a count or something. This guy's got a really interesting vampire look, in my opinion. Just his ears look kind of bat-like. Let's see. I kind of widened my net too. We'll take a look at, I believe, the woman with the curly hair in the middle of the frame. I pull her in. Yeah. And then I'm just trying to find like who could be a vampire. This interesting model here. Also the photo. I mean, I feel like you could easily turn that to a vampire. And just the pose was good too. Some of these look really intense, like they could be a vampire. This one person here have like an intense look about them. Could be a vampire. Could be cast as a vampire. Anyone works really, but there's certain faces that I feel like are more striking. I start trying to go a little wider here in terms of like who I'm casting. This young woman here has a really interesting face. She could work. Like I said, the vampire, they're going to be kind of monstrous. So like I'm going to be distorting the face quite a bit during the sketching process. Just drinking tea while I talk through this. Okay. Throw the images on, organize the images, keep them neat, keep them organized. It's best to organize this stuff as if someone else is going to look through the board. That way, if you're having to show a client like your ideas, or if your art director wants to see your ideas, you've already got it all cleaned up, ready to go. The only thing I'm not doing on this board that I would do at work is adding arrows and text that call out exactly what I like about an image. So like this guy here that we just grabbed, like I might point to the ears and be like, has a bat-like, ear shape, and I might just say that that's interesting, and that would be enough to tell my lead that like this is why I pulled this image on here, and they can agree or disagree, but like I just letting them know what I'm thinking, keeping that thought process going, like that, adding context. That's probably one of the biggest notes of feedback I get even still today, like that I'm too in my head about what I'm trying to do. I need to be putting my work down so everyone can understand what's happening. And it's something it's hard to remember all the time, because when you're focused on just getting the ideas out, you're just like, oh man, these are just my ideas, I just gotta get them down. But in reality, you need to really think about who else is going to be seeing this, who else are you making this for, and move forward like that. I'm gathering some clothes references now. One of my ideas is to make this guy like a punk rock vampire. So I'm gonna just gather some images like punks preferably from the 80s. These references won't be used for the next part of the tutorial. They'll be in part 3. Part 1, we're sketching the head in paper. Part 2, we're painting the head in Procreate. Part 3, we're drawing the full body with Procreate. And then part 4, we're going to make an illustration, a full illustration with them. It might be like a keyframe. Just searching for interesting outfits. I'm trying to look for like authentic punk. Every now and then, like this guy, I was like, he could be a cool vampire. I'm gonna go ahead and pull him in. I like to pull a diverse cast of people when I'm referencing. There's no rule to who you can reference or not reference, so it's best to cast a wide net in terms of diversity, and both in gender and ethnicity. There's not enough like sinister black vampires in like cinema. And then I don't think there's too many like non-binary vampires. There's like Count Dracula, classic masculine vampires. There's classic feminine vampires. There's always like that like femme fatale vampire character. But there's no like younger generation of vampires that have really come out yet, like for like a new age of culture and cinema. So it's a chance to design something new that no one else has done, just by making it more diverse. And people will connect with it better too. There'll be a whole audience of people you can capture just because you included them. Everyone wants to feel included, so something to consider. I'm just looking for outfits. I'm trying not to go for too high fashion. I'm trying to look like authentically punk. I kind of like that fishnet shirt that guy had on, but I'm kind of looking for more like crust punk, more like just a little more straying away from like the fashion side and more on like the utilitarian side. So like, you know, the jacket should be like a used old jacket, not like an expensive jacket they bought, you know, something they customize themselves. Oh, this is cool. This guy's got like a safety pin in his mouth. I thought that might be cool to do, safety pin on the vampire. So the only reason I'm pulling that image is because I like the safety pin idea. I don't really think that he works as a model for the vampire, but and then here we go. There's a more diverse image search here. So I'm going to specifically look for black models at this point. At this point in the search, it was dawning on me that I hadn't pulled too many, not enough women, and there wasn't enough non-white people that I pulled into my references. So I'm just kind of searching for who else I can look for. Also, like, I feel like I was looking for like kind of weird looking people. I'm still looking for interesting looking faces, but I'm also considering like hair texture. Like, it might be cool to do those like long braids on the vampire. But I want to make them punk rock, so like, you know, spikes probably be more appropriate. Some kind of like glued hair. Let's see here. I think I pulled this one guy here who's got like the light colored eyes and the braids. I think that might be cool to have braids on the vampire. Pull him. I'm gonna distort the faces so like it doesn't really matter how attractive or symmetrical their faces are. I'm gonna end up making them look scary. They're just basic references for like proportions and shapes. There's nothing more that I'm pulling from there. Also skin tone, because that's another influential part. Let's see. We're just gonna scroll down here. I'm looking for interesting, like, there's another face that's like wasn't part of my search, but I saw that guy. I thought, oh, he's got interesting like scars going on in his face. And then this pulled me into just like people with scars on their face. And so like the search is kind of just branched off into a new direction now. Okay, people who have scars on their face. There's some interesting effects teeth. Now, drug addict. Just trying to find like, I want people with emaciated faces, people with like skin marks, like scabs and interesting teeth. These are all kind of what I'm looking for. And Pinterest isn't the best place to search for this. I'm not finding really anything that interesting. I think I find one image on here that gives me a good idea of like how emaciated I could go. I think it's right here. I've seen this one go around online before, but I can kind of see how prominent her cheekbones are, and that kind of tells me like, okay, I can go crazy with like cheekbones on this vampire. And then this interesting woman here, got kind of like a crooked mouth. And then I believe I pull in one more. But yeah, that's kind of the process here. Just finding whatever works, whatever is most interesting. Yeah. Once you get everything organized, the main thing I'll be doing will be like, I'll have this board up on my computer screen as I'm drawing on paper. So I could just look up, take a look at the board, get some ideas, draw some more, and then take a look at the board, draw some more. And that'll be kind of like what I do. So I'm just going to organize this, widen the frame, throw some more images on, organize them a little better. And then, yeah, that's the hunt. That's kind of the reference. Oh, one thing I did at the beginning of the video that I didn't really call out was I set a timer for myself for like an hour. I think this video is only about 30 minutes long, so we spent about half an hour looking for stuff. And it's a decent search. I mean, I didn't look up anything too crazy. I didn't find like groundbreaking. You know, I pulled in vampire bats. So it's not like a groundbreaking design choice, but at work, you know, we'll be given like half a day to do research and reference hunting. So imagine hunting references for like, you know, you get in at 9, you work until like 12:30 or 1, and you're just hunting references the whole time. So like the search should be more in depth, more unique if possible, and you're gonna have more time to do it. So like, you know, a good 4-hour reference hunting search could set you up properly for the rest of the week, because you'll be using those references for like the rest of the week of development. So keep that in mind. We only did 30 minutes here, and the more research you put into it, the better. But I like to set a timer for myself when I look for references, so I don't get lost on the internet looking at images. You know, because you could just sit there and look at images all day long, but you got to get yourself back into the work mode, you know, the drawing mode. So setting yourself a little timer, do like an hour at a time, give yourself a break, like an hour of reference hunting, give yourself a break, maybe do another hour, then give yourself a break, and then call it. 2 hours is a good chunk of time to look up stuff. But, you know, like I said, at work, you know, we've been known to search for half a day just for reference images. And we do more, you know, you got to do research about like location and like time period, depending on what you're doing. So that's kind of part of it. So yeah, here we go. About 30 minutes passed. So that's my board. This is what I'm going to work with for the sketching portion of the video. And I'll be pulling it up while I draw. But I'll probably share the image along with certain moments of the drawing video, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about when I start my sketch. Thanks for joining me.